really. I mean, they were like doodled on paper as an idea, and then some of them were like 3D modeled and screenshot to make the sprites, and then some of them were just like drawn or animated in Photoshop.
Okay. What came up with the idea with a bunch of the specimens? Sheena told me, AMG Sheena told me, that a bunch of them were just thought up on the spot. Was there one that you particularly thought of first, or did you start out with the more like specimens that like specimen, like the first specimen? Like
Yeah, just... we kind of like the game came out, episodically, sort of. So the specimens were created kind of in the order that they are. So so specimen 2 was like the first real specimen made.
Yep. And so it kind of just became this like, okay, well, let's put out like 100 floors per, like, I guess what would be considered an episode, right? So it's like, okay, well, specimen 2's first and so on, then 3, then 4, and it just, so then it, the 100 floor update kind of changed after the 500 floor, just because that's when it got picked up Steam by like Markiplier, PewDiePie, and all that kind of stuff. So then I think after that we did like what to 750 instead. So we had to like come up with like a couple of those in between in between that, right? So we're kind of just like throwing stuff like against the wall and to see what kind of stuck. So we're like, oh well, what tropes have we not done yet? What game have we not done yet? We're like, okay, well, what about like Clock Tower, for instance. Oh, we haven't done Clock Tower. Okay, let's do that. Okay, well, how do we make it like this? Okay, cool. And then do that one, and it's like, okay, well, what next? What have we done? Amnesia, that's a good one. Yeah, let's do that one. And just so like it was pretty much just process.
Was there any like scrapped specimens that didn't make the final cut?
Well, the second specimen I really made was the brain thing in the jar. It was going to be the second monster, but it wasn't really good enough to be anything. It's just a brain in a jar. So it just became like kind of a scenery asset. And then there was specimen 10 that was originally just the big worm, because we kind of ran out of time. And I had in my notes, like I had a sketch for like a big cave with a worm thing. But he wasn't very good. So we like revisited that one, made it more inspired by the thing. And I had some really bad ideas written down for some kind of snowman that you like put together and then came alive that I never even sketched. It was just like written down.
And then there was a couple specimen 1 variants that just weren't end up like used. They got like doodled out.
Oh yeah.
But then that was kind of the end of that, like the salt shaker, for instance. It was just random ones that were just like, hey, what about this one? And then it's like, what other random inanimate objects and or not can we just like stick faces on?
Yeah, since they're so simple, they were created in mass and then cut down.
Yeah.
So was the game originally going to have only about 500 floors then?
I didn't really think about the length of the game at the start, but it was a joke that it was 1,000 rooms. But I didn't really, like, we didn't plan exactly how long it was until people started, assuming it was going to be 1,000 rooms long, and they were like, okay, we can make 1,000 rooms.
Okay. What about the endings? Specifically the first 3. I mean, before there was the Dollhouse you guys made years later, of course. Mm-hmm. Because I've always like wondered, what was the inspiration behind those endings? Like specifically like the good ending, the bad ending, and like even like the joke ending or rival ending.
Well, it wasn't like anything super specifically like film or game wise that inspired the endings. I just thought like that should be the backstory behind the specimen and how effective they are. Is that Spooky's like collecting ghosts. to use, which kind of didn't really use as like a true ending later, but then the bad ending, I just thought it'd be cool if the Vinyls did it. I think I probably was aware of the bad endings to like Silent Hill, where if you take a ton of damage or you fight too many monsters, you get certain endings, but I hadn't gotten those endings at the time, so like those might have influenced it, but I don't know to what degree.
I mean, also you like Corpse Party too. In some of the bad endings, you do get turned into like one of the ghosts that stays in like Heavenly Host Elementary. So a lot of that kind of stuff like really kind of paved that. And the Arrival thing was like just a 100% inside joke that we thought would be funny, just because it's like people have asked us before, like if it's possible to turn off certain specimen because they might have like some kind of phobia against X thing or X or Y thing. And also just like some people just don't like the cardboard cutouts and stuff, especially for like speed running and things. So it just kind of became this like joke where it was like, haha, what happens if you just turn off both? It's like, oh, well, we like give them an incentive to see if they'd actually like do something like that as like just this big like because like games also have joke endings like that too. So it was just it was just a random thought that just kind of happened.
I wanted to be mean though, and I wanted Sheena to make it so they have to walk back all the way up.
All the way up. Yeah. I shut that one down. I was like, I don't know, 1,000 rooms is suffering enough, but that was actually considered as well.
So was the Dollhouse and the Karamari Hospital DLC, were those well, specifically the Dollhouse, was it always going to be exactly how it was in it is now, or did it have an original like plot / story in it?
It had a very loose story, and it had a very long development time that was kind of off and on, so it kind of did change a whole lot. We knew we wanted to do dolls, but the art style, like at the start, was like completely different. But it was like kind of too hard to do. And I was trying to make a mechanic where you had to like edit photos to find like ghosts in them, just something that would let you like look at a creepy thing. I think Gina showed me that was it the baby doll from Condemned?
Yeah, it was the baby doll from Criminal Origins, where there's a part in that game where there's a whole like scene where you have to take like a baby doll that's like it like and like it turns kind of into your HUD in the corner on the bottom like right hand corner. And I remember it scared the shit out of me when I was like like 17 or something. It's like 2-3 in the morning, and I'm like playing through this game, and then all of a sudden you have to pick that thing up, and it's like moving around, and it's like moving its eyes and its hands and stuff like that, because it's part of like a a device for part of the thing. And I always thought mechanics like that were really cool, where you had some kind of object that would interact with the overworld of something else. I always just thought like, because it can be done really well and really clever, and sometimes it can just be like not done at all. And so I thought, with the Dollhouse, it was like, oh, well, we have to make a couple more mechanics so that we can like, so that people get a new experience. And so that was honestly one of the, I think, Akira, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that one of the first things that like we decided on Dollhouse was like kind of that?
Yeah, and like that whole like simple mechanic kind of informed the rest of the game, because then it was like you're taking care of it and you have like a relationship with it, sort of. I would like react to Room Shrin. Sorry.
Oh, I was the indie game Tattletale also a little bit of did that help like with the mechanic of carrying around the doll and taking care of it as well? Or
I definitely understand why you would think that. And now when I think about it, on a subconscious level, I want to say yes, but I was very, very focused on the like the criminal, like the condemned criminal origins. But like now when I sit and I actually like think about it, I think I totally had some kind of tattletale feeling in my subconscious about it. because I love Tattletale. I love that game very, very much. So there was probably some kind of subconscious thing, sure.
Is there like any like so Spooky's backstory. So was it always gonna be like how it is in like the full game, or was it like where his father is like revealed to be like the person that is main like brought back her from the dead.
It kind of loosely was, but it wasn't really like her backstory and with her father wasn't completely written until we made Karamari Hospital. That's when we kind of made most of that backstory.
Yeah. We kind of just because the initial kind of part of it was just what you see in the game. It was like, oh, we should come up with some kind of like backstory, that kind of goes along with it. And so it was kind of just like your general roughed out thing, what you see in the arcade. And then we didn't really have any kind of like plans or any of that stuff to kind of do much more than that. And then it just kind of, then Karamari happened. And then we were like, well, we could probably do a little bit more of that. And then when Dollhouse happened, we kind of just really like went full force with like solidifying like her actual like backstory for real, and kind of like tried to figure out how we could tie it all together like as best, but also not as like giving away, because a lot of spookies too is we want the player to feel like it's that this stuff is kind of happening to them, which is why you don't see reflections as well. Like the reason why you don't see reflections is partly just because we were kind of lazy about it, but also because it was one of those like, well, we want the player to feel like this is happening to them, like that kind of whole immersion thing. And so we kind of want the players to have like their own imagination about certain things. So some of it is up to interpretation on purpose. And so we tried our best to tie up all loose ends, but also leave some of it up to interpretation as well, as best as we could in like some kind of like understandable kind of way.
Kira, I've read on the wiki for Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion that you do the voice for Spooky. I believe it says you do the voice for Spooky. How did you do that?
It was a voice changer called Karovi. Because when I was making Spooky, I had like a different drawing, and then I was playing around with the voice clips, and then tried that filter, and I liked it. So then I like redrew Spooky to kind of fit the voice, and stuck with it. It kind of was a bigger selling point of the game because Spooky was cute.
Give me a second to think for more. Build your own mansion. Is there anything you can say about that upcoming feature? What's it gonna be like? Is it gonna be like a menu where you can build your own mansion? Is it gonna be like a sort of like RPG maker, but RPG maker, but you are able to like build your mansion and drag assets, or is it going to be like a little bit like Unreal Engine? What is it gonna kind of look like?
It's hang on, I have like a source thing that I can kind of sort of explain how it kind of works. So it's, I guess the best way that I can think about it is like because there's going to be like a very like simplified version of it for people who don't know how to model, for people who don't know how to code, but still would like to contribute some kind of thing at all. And then there's going to be a more complicated version for people who do know how to 3D model, for that do know how to program and stuff. But the most simple, like the simplified version is think of it like Mario Maker. You know how in Mario Maker there's just like a toolbar that has a bunch of stuff, and you just like drag and drop, and then you can build platforms, and then it's essentially just like that. We developed a tool for Spookies HD so that we could kind of like make the game, as like quickly and efficiently as possible. And in the trailer for HD, we actually show off the tools because we thought it would be really cool. So we've had this idea since like Spookies HD like started, and so even on the I'll put it in text to Mike. If you watch at that point in the video, you'll see this like kind of room editor thing on how we're like doing things, and so that's the best way that we can explain to you how it's going to work with like the drag and drop and and all that kind of stuff in the simplified version.
Okay.
So then you'll be able to drag in like all of the specimen in their current forms. You won't be able to like, you might be able to like change their basic stats, like say like specimen 2 floats at like 0.3 seconds or whatever. Then you can just change it to whatever in small little value boxes and things like that. But it's basically just dragging and dropping whatever current thing exists already. So with like slight customization. So you'll be able to use like the Karamari assets and room bases. You'll be able to use the dollhouse ones. You'll be able to use any of the specimen, any of the dolls, any of that stuff for the mansions. And then once you're done, it'll have Steam Workshop integration where you can upload your mansion to the workshop and people can play them. It's kind of essentially like if you're downloading mods for like Binding of Isaac, for instance, there's like a little mods section where you can enable and disable and things like that. So it would function like that.
Okay. So my next question is a little bit of a strange one, but I've always wondered how how the door sound effect was made, both door sound effects. The number one where you just walk through a normal door, and the second one where you just like it's Resident Evil door in the elevator.
I laugh just because I like the story on how the sounds were made.
Sorry if there's a lot of background noise. I'm babysitting ferrets.
Oh.
They're very loud.
Yeah, ferrets are rowdy.
I had a really old wooden chair. That was just the chair I used, and it was very creaky. So I would just like record from my laptop. I didn't even have a good microphone, and then I like twisted it and made those wooden sounds. The metal sound door is probably samples I got from somewhere, but I don't remember exactly where.
Definitely sounds like a sample.
I know, no, that wasn't until Vivo. A bunch of metal scrapey sounds I use now are from a lawnmower, but those wouldn't have been in Spookies.
Is there was there any point in the mansion was there ever any idea or concept for the player to go outside besides the deer lord specimen room? How in Luigi's Mansion, how you go outside, was there a outside forest room ideas ever?
Well, like for the ending, I kind of wanted to do like Portal 2, like when you're at the end, which is kind of like the fake out before the boss battle. You go like through the Thousandth Door, and you're in like a big white grassy field. But it turns out to be fake. So canonically, I think we were too far underground to be outside.
Yep.
So, but I mean, I liked it like depicting outside in the Dear Lord level and the ending.
And also like the Dear Lord's death screen as well, because in that you technically go outside in that too. But yeah, that was like kind of like the extent of it. pretty much, I'd say.
This kind of goes along with what I was asking about scrap specimens, but is there any really interesting like did you ever have any really interesting ideas on that were never implemented about specific specimen rooms for that snowman specimen you said you sketched it down or you had on paper? Was there ever an idea to have a snow area or anything like that?
No snow areas besides that one.
Tiri's. Yeah. Well, Tiri's.
Oh yeah.
Tiri's is a snow one.
She didn't really I guess she has a death screen that shows it.
Yeah, she has a death screen that kind of shows where the ground is white and it kind of has this bluish kind of snowy kind of thing to it, but nothing else other than that, as far as I was aware.
Yeah, especially that would be interesting because most of the ideas that didn't make it made it for reasons.
Is there any further features or ideas that didn't make it for specific reasons that you can share?
I think you, Sheena, you think you put it in HD, but sending the sword from Karamari Hospital into endless mode.
Yeah, no, that's because that initially what was going to happen was that at the end of Karamari, you were the wing, the deformity wing, that had a purpose, and its purpose was that you were supposed to take the sword if you did New Game Plus. It would, after you traveled through X amount of rooms in the deformity ring, there was going to be kind of a ground portal that was just kind of kind of thing, and you sacrificed the sword in there, and it would appear in endless mode. And we didn't. There was a lot of reasons, especially for Game Maker, because Game Maker was really limiting to the things that we could do, which is why HD exists. So we wanted to do that, but it kind of looked weird, not really possible, kind of thing. So then in HD, it hasn't been implemented yet, but I'm in the process of doing that now actually, so that it will be in HD. And there was just other kind of just small things from the original to the HD, because it's the same thing. It would have been cool if the OG Spookies where Specimen 3 could crawl out of the holes. So that's why we do it in HD. And just small things like that couldn't make it into the original that are now either going to be or are already in. I'm trying to remember if there's something at all that hasn't made it in either version for some reason. I'm trying to think.
I wanted to make a creepy specimen out of the romantic guy, but I couldn't come up with a good idea for him. The first series of notes, and you see his body, that guy. But it wasn't a great idea. So.
Yeah, about the romantic guy, and specifically a lot of I guess minor characters that are tried to brave past 1,000 doors but didn't make it. How'd you come up with the idea for all their personalities and their notes and what they bring to the plots?
I can just try to come up with a character and then write as that character, and see what have a different point of view reacting to the mansion, and have 3 different very different types of people kind of reacting to the surroundings that you're in.
Yeah, and it also kind of also was that same, what tropes, so we have the exploration kind of trope. We have the child trope, so a lot of that stuff does have Spookies is very much full of kind of trope, kind of inspirations kind of thing. So it became one of those okay, well, what trope of character person do we not have? Okay, well, we don't have a YouTuber, because that was a big thing, and still is, but at the time it was pretty way bigger, so it's okay, well, let's get into the mindset of being that person, and then just writing for them that way, and so on and so forth.
Were there any homages that just you couldn't fit, or you thought nah, this doesn't work, into the game?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah, not that I can think of either. Because they all kind of just worked when we thought about them. They all just kind of conveniently worked because all the games that we had picked all kind of had like a perfect spot that they could fit. Because we were, but like, yeah, like I said, the closest thing to that was just like that worm thing that we initially did, and that was it. But everything else kind of just like perfectly worked as is, conveniently.
What came to what how'd you think of the idea for how the saving at the water fountain and a lot of the gameplay ideas in Karamari Hospital?
Mostly Silent Hill, because that was the big inspiration behind that one's aesthetic and like feel.
Yep.
And I wanted save stations that you could like revisit in a little hub area. So I guess just to fit in with the hospital aesthetic, it was like a water fountain instead. And it's the same reason, like in the Dollhouse, it's a music box.
Is there any like pieces of art designed for like the loading screens or teasers for the game that you ended up not using?
No, there's a couple just random dolls I drew for the dollhouse that we didn't use, but not really anything that was like high finished art that got cut.
Yeah, we really did do everything as development like progressed kind of thing. It was like as an example, like when we were doing like Spooky's HD, I just hit up Kira and I was like, "Hey, can you doodle up some like promo art for me, for the Unity version?" And so, they went and drew up Spooky wearing like a Unity shirt, or like a black shirt that had like the Unity logo, kind of thing. And so it's like we didn't really do art because like it kind of became one of those like Kira's time was, we didn't want to waste their time, just like didn't want to waste my time either. So it was like we didn't really just do a bunch of random stuff without having some kind of cause or reason for it. So it became just like, like the Steam, like when OG went to Steam Greenlight, it was one of those like, hey, can you doodle up something, for the Steam Greenlight page? So like there weren't really any kind of like unused art things because of it, because everything that Kira did had the intention of being used at some point or another with purpose. So
I did find this doll, but it's just a doll with very swollen eyes.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, there's not much unused concept art in here.
My next question is I'm very interested to know like sometimes when you boot up the game it'll show like Spooky's Sandcastle Land Sharks or like Spooky's Barbecue or something. What gave you what was the idea behind doing that?
That's a story. That's a whole story in itself. I'll take the lead on this one because I was mostly handling that. Basically, what had happened is we kind of found ourselves in some legal trouble at some point because I woke up one morning with a really aggressive email. I actually don't even remember if Kira had gotten the same email or not, or if it was me specifically, because I do a lot of the like public correspondence with Spookies. But essentially, what had happened is I had woken up one morning to a very, very long, aggressive email telling me that we were infringing on a German game studios company by the name of Spooky House Studios in Germany. They made They make like mobile games, I guess. And I guess they didn't like that we were taking their SEO because, you know, at the time, like Spookies was getting pretty popular. So the original name of the game was Spooky's House of Jump Scares. And so, you know, Spooky's House. We were taking all their SEO. They didn't like that. And so they threatened legal action against us and told us that if we didn't change the name, they were going to sue. And, you know, the original Spookies was free. Kira was, you know, was in school doing their thing. You know, I had this other job doing my thing. And so, you know, we weren't charging for the game, could not afford an international legal battle or anything like that. So it kind of just became this like, well, I guess we have to change the name or we're going to get sued and we can't afford this. So what do we do? So we ended up just changing the name to Spooky's Jump Scare, or yeah, just Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion instead. But as kind of like a finger, like to that studio and to all that stuff. That's why the logo had like the Scotch tape, you know, with the scratch off and the Scotch tape, but also why there's a couple just different different names and stuff that we kind of that like Kira thought were really really funny. It was just like it was just our way of like middle finger / coping because we didn't really want to change the name. We really really didn't. It really bummed us out and it really stressed us out. But you know, it's kind of like vent art, I guess, is the best way to describe that. We just did it to kind of cope and vent about like how frustrating that entire situation was because it was like several months long process that this went on for. So.
What about all the room layouts and all the different types of rooms that can be randomly generated?
Like red content ones, or
well, on the original game and the HD. How'd you come up with the idea for those?
Most of them just like made on the fly as hallways.
Yeah.
And then like we'd play through them and make sure they weren't too terrible. The only ones that were like drawn out and planned were like specimen rooms and like DLC areas, but the actual like 99% randomized halls, they weren't really drawn down or anything. They were just made really quick.
Yep. And so when HD came out, we wanted to add a bunch more rooms, especially now because we had a lot more like powerful engine that we could do stuff. So, you know, I was just sitting around being like, all right, you know what would be cool? Stairs. Because we couldn't do it before. You know, it'd be really cool. Ramps. All right, cool. So that's what I would do. I would just make a couple quick ramp rooms or a couple quick like stair rooms or curve rooms. And then, you know, then I would just like do that and then just run it in player and just like run through them to see if they were like, if they would work well and, you know, how they felt and stuff like that. So it's all just like really random and like on the fly, like really impromptu stuff.
Did you design these out on paper or did you just like design them on like game, like a Unreal Engine and a Game Maker on a whim?
Just like in engine on a whim.
Yeah, in engine. Yeah, just in engine. It was just easier.
Was there like a script for Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, or did you just think of all the stuff as you went along?
I mean, like an area, like when it came to time to make a new specimen in their area, it's like written out and planned. It's not like on a whim, but like their rooms would change. Like as you play them, you realize this room is 10 times too big, stuff like that. But we didn't really have a set in stone design process for things. Ideas just happen and then they're written down and then they eventually take the form they do.
Yep.
So, how long did the game take to develop? The original version, I mean.
Like just the 1,000 rooms? Like 2 years, right? 2?
It might have been more, but
it might have been more.
Yeah, it wasn't always active development either.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, like that's the other thing too is that like a lot of it wasn't active, and it's even the same thing with the Dollhouse because like we had a couple like meetings and like wrote a couple of things down for Dollhouse, and then I got busy, Kira got busy, and then it became one of those like we stopped development for a while. for a couple, like, I think almost like a year, I think, actually, from the first initial conversations that we had about it in planning process. Then we couldn't do anything for like a year. And then the year after that, we went like really full force. So it really seems like, for instance, like Dollhouse took like 2 years, but it really didn't. Like if we cut out all of the downtime and times that we were not able to, I think Dollhouse roughly took about like 6 months, I think, proper.
So a big
Yeah, sounds about
part of the production around why it took so long was just time, like finding time to do it.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what year did you originally start on like the very first version of Spooky's like Jumpscare Mansion? Like what year did it like begin like development?
So like when we started,
Yeah, like when you
Yeah.
first started.
well, it started off as like just like a test of like 4 rooms, and that was whenever I was working on Acto, because it was supposed to be a boss originally, and I was messing around with like this Doom preset someone made in Game Maker. 2012 or something, a long time ago.
I didn't realize the game was that old.
But like when it got popular, it wasn't like a finished game. It was still like pretty early, so we just like worked on it kind of episodically.
Yeah, when it got popular is kind of essentially when we had to like sit and be like, okay, now we need to get our assets in gear and start working on stuff, because everybody's like, because all eyes are on us, and there is like a demand, kind of thing. So then Spookies went from like a fun random thing to like on like now we have to actually kind of take it like seriously. to like serious to like an extent.
Yeah.
Spooky's like design and overall like the cartoon aspect of some of the like specimen 1 and the cat and the room before you encounter the I forget the specimen specific name, wall specimen, flesh wall
7.
specimen.
Yeah.
Were there any like any anything that like contributed to like the game's cutesy style? Like for example, were there any cartoons that helped make it look?
Well, it was mostly Adventure Time for the like general aesthetic. For the I can't remember the number now. The cat in Flesh Wall
7.
area.
Yeah, 7.
That was kind of more based on Yumi Nikki and Alice, American McGee's Alice. Although it still kind of used the same cartoon aesthetic. And then the Dear Lord's area, I wanted it to look like Over the Garden Wall. I didn't really pull it off that well, but that was the main like cartoon that inspired that area.
Yeah, and then the specific with like, for instance, like with Adventure Time, it was like Specimen 2 is like looks exactly like, well, not exactly, but it looks like the Love Globe monsters from Adventure Time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed that, and Specimen 2 also unintentionally looks like bendy a little bit. So, my next question is was Spooky always going to be was she always going to be like blue?
Probably. I mean, the first drawing of her was like the first thing that was drawn, like before Specimen 2 or even most of the jump scare cutouts. And I was just looking at ghost colors, and I liked that color scheme.
Was her original? Did she have an original design that went unused?
I drew a really bad looking ghost with a top hat, but that wasn't like designed. It was on like notebook paper because I was just like trying to think of ideas. I found those images and posted them somewhere, but that was a long time ago.
My next question is the beginning of the game where there's a text scroll and it's saying that for as long as you can remember, the mansion's always been abandoned, and being a historian, you walk up the mountain, the hill. Was there ever going to be like a scene where you do that, or was it always going to be intended to be a text scroll?
It was always going to be a text scroll. I was trying to make it like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, how they kind of have the text scroll with the big castle in the background. I thought it'd be cool.
Yep.
So I understand that you're still spookies, but is there ever are you gonna have like Easter eggs to spooky and your other in the future, or
Well, Vivo has spookies. Has like references in like two spookies. I think there's like one or two, isn't there?
Yeah, and like Specimen 8 has like a kind of crossed over universe thing. Although they're like barely in it, but they are referenced some. Oh yeah, and I forgot about that. The like Spooky's axe and Spooky's knife are in Austin Vivo, and there's like a Spooky's poster. Just like little things, not like really big homages or like whole creatures, but yeah.
And like Bulbo, Quest for Bing Bing, which is the next game that AMG specifically is working on. There's like one or two just kind of really minor things too, in the same kind of way where like there's going to be like like a poster or like a spooky plush or something like that, kind of just like in the corner somewhere, and that's just kind of it. It's just small little homages. I don't really think it's necessary to have like big sections or big areas or anything like that more than that, at least in my opinion. So
was there always going to be like one like just spooky in general, one ghost in the mansion that is always going to be like, but was there always just going to be one spooky, or was there originally going to be like more, or was it always just going to be one?
No, there was always one. There was an intern from Nickelodeon who said he wanted to pitch it as a show, and I drew other characters for that. But my ideas were bad, and he was just an intern, so that didn't get picked up.
Yep.
Is there any like drawings of that you could share anywhere, or
They're probably on my laptop, but they were really bad. So, and it was just like two other characters that looked just like Spooky, except one of them was wearing like a button-up shirt or something.
What would
I was just gonna say they wouldn't be worth the trouble of finding to see.
And yeah, just imagine Spooky's head and all that stuff, but just with a shirt, like a button-up shirt, pretty much.
Okay. That's very interesting. Is there like any like did you ever like have like a little Bible for the show, or like any like what would be the synopsis for like the show? If
we didn't get that far. There was nothing at all.
It's like one sentence or something. It was supposed to be about two siblings who got stuck in Spooky's house, but I don't remember besides that. I mean, Spooky's mansion.
Would you ever like revisit that concept, or is that a completely dead concept? Not to dump the game.
If we ever tried to do like Spooky's media in that format, I'd try to make a better story synopsis. I think I would want to distance myself from that idea as far as I could, because they weren't very good.
Yeah,
and I don't like want to envision it right now because it got too many projects going on.
Yeah, we didn't really have any kinds of like intent. We really didn't have any kind of thought or intention to add any kind like spookies into any kind of other media or like even sequels or prequels. Really,
Yeah.
there was like never really like intentions of it, and there still aren't intentions. Like obviously things and our opinions about that kind of stuff can change. Like if something promising or very interesting came up, like I don't know, just something dumb, like we'll just say like DC Comics hit us up or something, like then maybe we'd kind of consider it and cross that bridge when we get there if it was some kind of interesting or promising thing. But it's not really like something we can like we thought about have any intentions of doing or just anything like that.
So there haven't been any really any companies that have like hit you up for any anything else spooky related?
The Nickelodeon thing, and then a guy who worked at Disney XD had hit us up and asking us if we could like hand over kind of like a
For Parker Plays.
for the Parker Plays thing. Yeah, I guess yeah, some Disney XD thing. There's some show called Parker Plays, and it's just some person who just who's a Let's Player that's like but except it's on like the Disney XD channel or website or what. I don't know very much about it, but they reached out to us. But like upon doing research, it's essentially we're not going to get anything out of it. It's basically they're just like, hey, here, like they were essentially trying to pay us in like exposure bucks, and we just really weren't interested in anything like that. So I think those are like the only two like major things that kind of came up as far as like I'm aware. I think.
Now I understand that you have no intention of doing any prequels, sequels, requels, spin-offs, anything set in the spooky universe, but if you when I'm asking is if you were to
wanted to like revisit it for like a spiritual successor, I think it would need like a lot of new content because Spooky's story is kind of closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no plans for that right now either.
Nope. It's because like Spooky's like Kira had said earlier, it kind of started essentially in 2012, and so it's kind of one of those things when you work on something for so long, you kind of get drained over it. Like
very of its time, like the YouTube Jumpscare game era. It's kind of over now.
Yeah, and so it's like when you work on something for so long, you kind of get drained of it. It kind of becomes like frustrating, and it feels more like a stress more than like a fun thing. I remember by the end of it, I was kind of just really excited and ready to be done with it. Not because I hate spookies or anything like that, but just because it's like we've been working on this for so long at this point that like I want to work on some new things now. I want to try some new things with new games and things like that. So
I can understand that.
And so the idea of like doing a sequel or a prequel, I mean, it's still spookies, so that means we're not done, and then it just kind of becomes like a kind of just frustrating kind of thing.
So is there any reason why Spooky is like has murderous tendencies? Like or is that just because she's like brought back and mad at everybody that because nobody takes what I'm asking is there a reason why Spooky is just like has murderous tendencies?
It's because she's small and she's cute and she wants to be taken seriously, so she projects an aura of violence. It's like the mall video game, where you play as her going through the mall and stabbing random people. Spooky never did that. but she put that game there to make you think she did.
Was the mall mini game so that wasn't meaning anything?
Well, it's like the Pac-Man minigame too. It's like showing Spooky as like some kind of violent threat. But I mean, I don't see her as a violent threat. She never directly harms the player or anything like that. So
no, she wants to come off as a violent threat because she's tired of people calling her cute. That doesn't mean she actually is, though. She's just trying to act tough and be scary.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering my my questions. I really appreciate it, and